Will everyone please join me in Basho by placing your hands together and recite the Buddha's name with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. For today's Dharma School Dharma talk, the subject, or the theme of this one is going to be called Humbling Moments. Humbling Moments. Who, show of hands, everybody, who knows what a humbling moment is? Yes. And I'm certain all of us, at one point from time to time, have had humbling moments, right? Now, normally, it is a moment where we first might, be a little full of ourselves, or arrogant, or conceited, or filled with ego, and someone or another type of situation, or another type of element, kind of puts us in our place, right? As my brother would so like to, put it, kind of knocks me off of my high horse, right? But other times it's moments where we really get a good understanding of how either much farther we need to go, or basically how much more we have to learn. So I think in this particular aspect, there are kind of two types of humbling moments, right? Some that are productive and some that are not so productive. Now, the unenlightened part of ourselves, for all of us, for us Bombu, lots of times we like to see the non-productive types of humbling moments, especially when they happen to other people, right? Like when we see someone, get punished, or when we see someone kind of like, in a sense, get what they deserve, right? And I put that in quotation marks. Lots of times, like in the movies, when we see a bully get put in their place. Of course, one of the favorite moments in cinema comes from the Jackie Chan, Jaden Smith movie, The Karate Kid. I mean, it should be called The Kung Fu Kid, and internationally it's known as The Kung Fu Kid. But you see when Jackie Chan protects Jaden from those bullies, and he actually does it in a very way. He doesn't like beat down on the bullies. He actually makes it so that they end up hitting themselves. He's that good at Kung Fu, right? But we as, kind of unenlightened beings, get this, kind of like, almost evil joy of seeing people like get what they deserve, right? But other times, we also have other types of humbling experience where we realize just how, right, much we are not in control of things, or how much we have yet to learn. So a couple of humbling moments, I think, especially when it comes to productive types of humbling moments, can be seen in our own history. So we talk about Shakyamuni Buddha, right, Prince Siddhartha. Remember how Prince Siddhartha was brought up? He was brought up in nothing but wealth, with all the best things in the world and all the best clothes. And yet the humbling moment for him was when he left the palace and saw the four signs, right? He saw the old age, right? And his Champa, he couldn't lie to him. And he said, this will happen to you too, right? So Siddhartha, as young and as handsome as he looked, right, realized that impermanence is also very much, a reality that he is also going to experience. The next thing he saw was a sick person, right? And Champa couldn't lie to him. And he said that this can also happen to you. We are not invulnerable, right? What a humbling moment for a Shakyamuni Buddha. Then the last thing, of course, he saw was permanent impermanence, in a sense, that he saw the funeral happening. And even then, Champa could not lie to him and said, even you, Prince Siddhartha, are going to eventually experience this as well. So humbling moments can be very can be very counterproductive, but they can also be very productive, because it opens our eyes to how much either we still have yet to learn, or again, how much we must rely on others for where we are today. Even Shinran Shonin, our founder of Jodo Shinshu, had very humbling moments as well. Think about this. Shinran was inducted into the priest order at 9 years old, right? So, I mean, I'm not sure how many of you are interested in becoming priests at 9, right? But if you're part of the Higashi Honganji tradition, you are technically allowed to become ordained at 9 years old. Nishi Honganji were a little bit more strict on that. You have to be 16 years old, but in Higashi Honganji, you can still get ordained at 9 years old because that's how old Shinran was. And Shinran studied diligently on Mount Hiei for 20 years, doing all sorts of hard practices, and became accomplished in many different parts of the monastery. He could probably recite so many of the sutras by memory, performed the 1,000-day marathon of walking around Mount Hiei. He probably accomplished all of these things. And yet, his humbling moment was still that time where he realized 20 years later, I am no closer to enlightenment. And I need to find the way that will guarantee my enlightenment. All this self-practice that I did, and I am still no closer to enlightenment than when I started. What a humbling moment for Shinran. Even more humbling is when he actually found his teacher, Master Honen Shonin, helping him to realize that the Nembutsu path is one where all of that tariki or other power of the Nembutsu is working just for him, right? Or just for all of us, for our benefit. What a humbling experience for Shinran, and led him to lead a very wonderful religious life. But even in this instance, myself also, I had a very humbling moment this past weekend, this last weekend. So all of you know that myself and John and Kara went down to Sacramento for the National Council. This is where all the temples gather together, and we are representing each other's temples and district, and we vote on things like the budget and get reports, annual reports of the various aspects of BCA, right? But I'm actually not going to talk about the meeting itself. What actually happened, my humbling moment, was when I was staying with my great aunt, my great auntie May, who lives in my old neighborhood, by the way. So it was a wonderful experience for me to go back to Sacramento because, as you all know, I am from Sacramento and that's where I grew up. So I was even more filled with this feeling of wonderful nostalgia because I got to stay in the old neighborhood in the pocket area where I grew up. So as you all also know, and I've explained before in in some Dharma talks, I'm doing much more to try to stay in shape and work out, and like to think that I'm making some progress on that. And so every morning, right before National Council, like around 6 a.m., I would go on a morning run around my neighborhood. And actually, there's a park that's in my neighborhood called Marriott Park. And what's really neat about it is that they have this exercise part of the park where they have like the parallel bars, the pull-up bars, and places to do push-ups, all those things, right? So I was really happy to have that. And so, I've been working on trying to be able to do pull-ups, so I'm able to, so finally at Marriott Park, I was able to do 1.5. And then I dropped down. And so I was feeling pretty good about myself, right? And I was like, haha, I got to that point. Then this man who was a neighbor in the old pocket area, who was a good, I think, in his late 60s, if not early 70s, came to the park, didn't say a word, went to the highest pull-up bar, reached up, and hung there for a second. And I thought, oh, he's doing exercise to kind of stretch his back, right? And then this, what I would have gathered to be late 60s, easily early 70s man, did 8 pull-ups. And then finally on the last one, he got the 8th one in, dropped down, didn't say a word, and then just walked around the park. and left me looking like, well, very humbled. I'm not done. He did a whole lap around the park, came back to that very spot, the highest pull-up bar, hung there for a little bit, and cranked out 6. Now, to be fair, this man was much thinner than I am, didn't weigh as much as I do. Even still, though, it was a very humbling moment for me. It made me realize, hey, a lot of people have been telling me, hey, Sensei, you've lost weight and you look a lot better, or oh, I'm glad you're getting all this exercise. And I was feeling pretty good about myself, pretty arrogant maybe, very egotistical in my head. And what happened? This man who, now I'm going to call him a bodhisattva, I think. This man comes to the park and shows me up, and without even meaning to do so, really. Because he didn't really acknowledge me or look at me. He just had his own routine, was doing his own practice. And yet I still took from this moment that, as much as you think, or as much as I think I'm getting fit or what have you, right? There's still a long way to go. And I can't get arrogant. Similar to when, in Star Wars, when Luke Skywalker and Han Solo are fighting off the TIE fighters, right? And finally, Luke Skywalker blasts one, and he shouts to Han Solo, I got him, I got him. What does Han Solo say to him? Great kid, don't get cocky, right? And these are all messages for us to listen to, right? These are very wonderful experiences, I think productive, humbling experiences. Now, yes, we as unenlightened beings like to see sort of the unproductive, humbling experiences, right? In the media and the way, that sometimes the news kind of feeds on that, in a sense of things that we want to see. But let's try also to look for those other humbling experiences that can really teach us something, that can actually not just make ourselves feel humble, but inspire us to go further. And this is, I think, the whole point as well of the story of Bodhisattva Dharmakara, who became Amida Buddha to save all sentient beings to the realm of enlightenment, right? Of course, by ourselves, with ourselves, there's no way we can hope to accomplish as much as, all those meritorious practices in just this one lifetime. But that doesn't mean we just give up and we don't live productive or good lives or ethical lives or meaningful lives. It's something to strive for and to look forward to. Will I ever be able to, get to where that man was, or, where he can do 8 pull-ups without any effort? I don't know. I can try, right? And even if I can't get to that point, I shouldn't be discouraged and stop, right? And stop my workout, right? I shouldn't, just because I can't do what someone else does, at least at this moment, doesn't mean that you just give up, right? These are the kind of humbling moments that are productive and remind us to keep going, to keep striving, and to keep walking the path of Nembutsu. So, Dharma school students, with this in mind, we have, all these things to think about. And yes, sometimes we can feel, humbled at times, but if there are legitimate times where we feel humbled in a productive way, hang on to that, right? Hang on to it, strive for it, and continue moving forward. So with this in mind, I would like to thank you all for attending today's Dharma School service. In closing, will you please join me in Gassho and recite the Nembutsu with me. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, namandats, namandats. Will you all please join me in Gassho as I read the words from the Contemplation Sutra of the Buddha of immeasurable light and immeasurable life. The Buddha said to Vaidehi, "You and other people should single-mindedly concentrate your thoughts on one place and visualize the Western Quarter. How is this done? Visualize in this way. You and all people, with the exception of those born blind, possessing the faculty of sight, should look at the setting sun. Prepare your mind to concentrate and sit down properly, facing the westward direction. Clearly contemplate on the sun with your mind firmly fixed on it, not allowing your mind to wander. Concentrate your thoughts on the sun, which is about to set and looks like a suspended drum. After seeing the sun, you should then be able to visualize it clearly, whether your eyes are open or closed. This is the visualization of the sun and is called the first contemplation. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats. Good morning, everyone. So today, what I read to you comes from one of the sutras of the Buddha of Immeasurable Light and Immeasurable Life. This one is called the Contemplation Sutra, and in the classical Japanese way of pronouncing it, it's called the Kanmuryo Jukyo Saho. Now, as stated before in previous Dharma talks, we in Jodo Shinshu revere three Pure Land sutras: the larger sutra, the larger sutra, the smaller sutra, and the Contemplation Sutra. Just a quick show of hands, how many of you attended the service last weekend to watch on the screen of the BCA National Council, that service, the Eitaikyo service? Okay, that service is actually the very detailed and ornate service you saw that weekend was actually a service that was based on the sutra that I just read, or that excerpt that I just read from, called the Contemplation Sutra. So to give you a little bit of background, I want to briefly explain what the Contemplation Sutra is, right? Like what's the meaning behind it, or where did it come from? The Contemplation Sutra, of course, starts with a drama, in a sense, kind of like those period pieces you see on television, like Game of Thrones, or what's another one of those period piece dramas that you can watch on Netflix or on a streaming service. And this one starts with the evil prince Ajatasattu, or Ajatasattu, and his usurping of the throne. So Prince Ajatasattu, like many princes before and after, plotted with the Buddha's evil cousin Devadatta to usurp the throne from his father. And he did this successfully by convincing his attendants and the other people to join his side and basically take the throne away from his father, and then imprisoned his father in the dungeon. His mother, Queen Vaidehi, would sneak him food, basically, and disguise food basically as jewels, so her husband, the former king, could eat the food. And then when Ajatasattu found out that his mother was doing this, he was about to actually execute her, but then his attendants stopped him and said, Prince, for countless ages before, and you certainly won't be the last, princes have usurped the throne from their fathers, but never have they ever killed their mother. And if you do this, we will totally rebel against you and you will lose your throne. So Ajatasattu said, okay, instead I will put my mother on house arrest and basically lock her in her suite. So then the Queen Vaidehi implores to the Buddha, who was actually giving a lecture very far away in Vulture Peak, entreats the Buddha, come and save me. What can I do? And the Buddha actually flies over with both Malgalyayana and Ananda. They fly to Queen Vaidehi and appear before her. And she entreats the Buddha, what did I do? What did I do to, deserve this, right? What am I, why do I have such a son? And then can you help liberate me? And then the sutra goes into the Contemplation Sutra, where it talks about how we can contemplate. And so what's interesting is that the sutra becomes kind of like a meditation guide for, for people who want to see the Pure Land. So the Buddha teaches Queen Vaidehi all the methods to visualize, the westward land of Amida Buddha. And part of that was the contemplation part of the setting sun, right? Looking towards the west. Now, I would like everyone to stick with me for just a second, but if you could, everyone, could you sit up straight and, with your back straight, and then if you could place your hands on your lap like this, nice and crossed, right? And briefly close your eyes. And as I read this section of the Contemplation Sutra again, so close your eyes. You and other people should single-mindedly concentrate your thoughts on one place and visualize the Western Corridor. How is this done? Visualize in this way. You and all people, with the exception of those born blind, possessing the faculty of sight, should look at the setting sun. Prepare your mind to concentrate and sit down properly, facing the westward direction. Clearly contemplate on the sun with your mind firmly fixed on it, not allowing your mind to wander. Concentrate your thoughts on the sun, which is about to set and looks like a suspended drum. After seeing the sun, you should then be able to visualize it clearly, whether your eyes are open or closed. This is the visualization of the sun and is called the first contemplation. Thank you. Now, go ahead and open your eyes. Now, were you all able to visualize the sun? Okay, now here's an interesting question. How many of you, when you visualize the sun, and be honest, when you see the sun, how many of you thought of the color yellow? Okay, a couple of you. What about orange? Okay, orange, yes, the setting sun. How about red? Okay, yeah. Isn't that interesting, right? Now, what's interesting about this is that when we visualize this, right, we all have in our minds what that sun looks like, right? Now, it's a great place to start. And it's a wonderful place to start in terms of the visualization that the Buddha teaches Queen Vaidehi in this Contemplation Sutra. The whole point of the sutra is to eventually contemplate on Amida Buddha. When you all come here and put incense in the incense burner, right? And you gasho and then you bow, you all look towards Amida Buddha. Okay? All right. Next visualization practice. Everyone close your eyes again. Okay, close your eyes again. Now, I want you to try and picture that statue of Amida Buddha that you see on a regular basis. When you gasho, right, put that image of the Buddha firmly in your minds. Okay, good, very good. Now, without opening your eyes, and keep that visualization of Amida Buddha there, I want you all to try your best with your hands to do the mudra or the hand symbol that Amida Buddha is doing, the statue. So without opening your eyes, go ahead and do it. Okay, good. Now keep the hand, keep your hands up. Now open your eyes. Very interesting. So everyone has, slightly different hand symbols. Okay, now I don't mean to call him up, but Crystal actually got the mudras correct. So the symbol is so you see everyone put your pointer finger and your thumb finger like this, right? Like making a circle. Now put your left hand down and your right hand up. This is the official mudra or hand symbol of Amida Buddha. So when you go now back to Japan, like if some of you go and visit Japan and you see all those Buddha statues, right? If you see a Buddha doing this or going, so watch my hands, going like this, right? Here or here, that is Amida Buddha. There are other Buddhas that have different hand symbols like this, or one of them is touching the ground, right? That's Amida, but the one's touching the ground is Shakyamuni Buddha. The one kind of pushing forward with its like middle finger like this is, I believe, Vairochana Buddha. right? So there's all these different Buddhas, but many of you got this symbol correctly. Now, what's interesting is that some of you used your pointer fingers, right, to point up and down. But that's okay. That's not incorrect necessarily. But why was that? That's because you will probably have the mind of Prince Siddhartha when Prince Siddhartha was born, right? And so what did Prince Siddhartha do after they were immediately born? Prince Siddhartha pointed to the heavens and the earth, right? So for a lot of you, that symbol is still ingrained in your mind. So what's wonderful about this is that we have visual aids like Amida Buddha, right? Like these statues here to help kind of give us an image of what the Buddha looks like. But the whole point of the Contemplation Sutra is to give us sort of a meditative guide for, visualizing the Pure Land and eventually being liberated from the world of suffering. Okay, so that gives some context as to the ritual that you all saw last weekend, but also to explain why the Contemplation Sutra is so important for us. Now, for Shinran, Master Shinran, our founder, the Contemplation Sutra is great, and he quotes from it many, many times. However, he says for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, the most important sutra is the larger sutra because of the 18th vow, where Bodhisattva Dharmakara openly declares that I will save all sentient beings without fail. I will save all sentient beings from this world of suffering, regardless of who they are. If they call upon my name even 10 times and are not born in my Pure Land, may I not be a Buddha, right? So that's the most important sutra for us as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, to give you some context. However, what's interesting and fun for us, especially as people who like to perform acts and do ritual, the Contemplation Sutra is a very neat guide that sort of gives you an idea of how to visualize these things. Now, this morning, the quote that I gave you was just the first step. There are many, many other steps of visualization that the Buddha teaches Queen Vaidehi in the sutra. When you all close your eyes or when you all concentrate and try to rebuild a house in your mind, right? It's not very easy. It amazes me actually how many artists are able to put down beautiful paintings or sculpt beautiful structures purely from their minds. I unfortunately do not have that ability. I unfortunately have kind of a monkey mind. So it jumps all over the place. It's really hard for me to focus. But actually, thanks to this, actually part of the spirit, mind, and body classes, we had a wonderful class by the Willises a couple of weeks ago on how to make onenju. And just to give you a little context on that, that in itself is a type of meditation when you think about it, a type of contemplation and focus, right? And this actually wasn't the first time that I've taken a nenju making class before. And when I've actually done it before in Berkeley at the Jodo Shinshu Center with my fellow cohorts of ministerial candidates and making my own nenju, they looked at me and they said, Tadao, this is the quietest we've ever seen you as you were, putting the nenju together. Of course, sitting and contemplating and meditating is also very, very hard for me because, again, I have a monkey mind, I have a lot of energy, I always want to move around. And so what else do? I do martial arts, right? That helps me focus. I also do chanting. Many of you know, and it's no secret, that I very much enjoy chanting, and which is something that I will be talking about later today. But the wonderful thing about our tradition is that there are so many avenues, actually, of how we can physically and mentally sort of, concentrate, whether it's chanting, whether it's doing oshoko, whether it's the rituals that we do, right? Whether it's just sitting quietly here in the hondo, contemplating, right? There are a lot of techniques within our tradition. But the most fundamental thing that we can never forget is that for us, our singular practice and most important practice is putting our hands together and saying, Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, and this isn't to diminish the importance and the effectiveness of the other practices, but I want us to always remember, as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, the most important practice is saying the Nembutsu. So with that in mind, will you all please join me in Gassho as I read once more the Contemplation Sutra. The Buddha said to Vaidehi, you and other people should single-mindedly concentrate your thoughts on one place and visualize the Western Quarter. How is this done? Visualize in this way. You and all people, with the exception of those born blind, possessing the faculty of sight, should look at the setting sun. Prepare your mind to concentrate and sit down properly, facing the westward direction. Clearly contemplate on the sun with your mind firmly fixed on it, not allowing your mind to wander. Concentrate your thoughts on the sun, which is about to set and looks like a suspended drum. After seeing the sun, you should then be able to visualize it clearly, whether your eyes are open or closed. This is the visualization of the sun and is called the first contemplation. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandats, 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 namandats.